Hello everyone, I'm here today to do a review of How Much of These Hills Is Gold by Pam Zhang. So this book was in the long list of the Booker Prize and many people were disappointed that it was not in the short list. So I thought I will come here and talk about my thoughts of this book now that I have read it. This book is about Lucy, who is a girl that is from Asian origin but lives in, I think, Northern California or like the west coast of the US. And this book is divided in 4 parts. The first section focuses on the relationship between Lucy and Sam, who is her sibling. The second part focuses on the relationship of Lucy and her mom. The third part is about Lucy and her dad, and then the last part it's a sort of a wrap up. I will say it goes back to Sam, but it also goes back to the relation between Lucy and the land itself, where she lives in Northern California. I think that the main reason why people like this book so much, and I understand, it's because the language is very beautiful at points, and I'm going to write a small abstract so that you get an idea. Sam squeezes the trigger, a roar, a bang, a rush, the sense of something enormous passing Lucy's ear. So it's very lyrical, almost poetic in many places. And I did like that in many places, but there is also parts in which it's a bit overwritten. Sometimes it's overwritten, like, for example, here it's talking about the father, and it says, she thinks of Ba salting his game, the salt to scorn iron, of salt in an open wound a burn that purifies, salt to clean the soul to save, salt on a rich man's table every Sunday, a flavor to mark the passage of the week. And that is like, sometimes it's just that didn't need to be there. It's just cutting the flow of the story in points. It's very poetic and well written in parts, but it's also very overwritten in others, and I think that's a bit of a consequence of this being a debut novel, that the author probably knows that she's good at writing poetic language, and she just does that all the time because she has not found her balance of how much poetic language she should use in a situation like this. I did like the language, but I think sometimes was overwritten. But going back to the story, the story is not really pacey. This book is not really about the plot. Also, I would say most of the characters are not super well developed, but it's about the feeling. It's about the poetic way in which you are supposed to imagine this nature and this landscape that it's talking about. There is some pieces of plot here and there, but it's not the most important thing. I think the exploration of the land and the relationships with Lucy and the other members of her family and how that affects her relationship to the land is the most important thing that this book does. And I think also something that she does that is very smart, I think, is in each of these sections, the style of telling the story changes a little bit, and I think that is because the different relationships that it talks about are a little bit different. So, for example, in the first part, it's very wandering, like it's not really going anywhere, and it's just about the beauty of it, because her relationship with the sibling is also a bit wandering, and we are not sure as readers if this relationship is going anywhere, or it's it's a strong one. The second part, which is about Lucy and her mom, it's a lot more structure, and the plot makes a lot more sense. It's much more focused in that sense, because the relationship of Lucy and her mom is much clearer in a way. And then the third part, for example, that her relationship with her dad was in a way, it's one of those relationships that you idealized, and the father used to tell her a lot of stories, so in that part the perspective changes and the narrative style changes into sort of a fairy tale almost kind of way of telling the story, because that's how the dad used to relate to the daughter. So yeah, in that sense, I think it's very well crafted, the way that she's trying to tell the story. But as I said, in parts she's trying too much, and then it stops working so well. But I understand why so many people like that style of writing, because it's quite powerful in ways. I have to say that as a story, it's not much of a story. So if you're looking for a plot and a story, this is not what you find in this book. Also, the characters, especially the secondary characters, are very two-dimensional and very stereotypical, especially like the Western ones. Lucy and her family are a bit better developed, but not overly, because that's not the point of the book. But again, if you're looking for amazing character development, maybe this is not the book for you. But overall, I quite liked the book. I think that it was enjoyable to read. But I do not think... I also understand why it's not in the shortlist of the Booker, and I understand why this has its flaws, basically, and I could see the flaws as well as the advantages, or like the great things that the book does. So overall, I would say I enjoyed the experience, but it's not going to be one of my favorite books ever, if that makes sense. About the topics that this book explores, it explores the relationships within a family, the dynamics of a family as a whole. It explores grief sometimes, in a way. It also explores what is home and your connection to a place, and how you relate to a place, and how that place might become part of you and your identity and your personality in a way, and how a place, even if it's not the place that you come from, might become home to you. How you make somewhere home that is not what's supposed to be your own home. I really like that topic, because it's something I can relate to. One thing that I found a little bit jarring at points is that the book jumps back and forth in time. So the different parts are in different time frames, and they go back and forth. They are not linear, and I found that sometimes a bit difficult to follow. Like, it always took me a few pages at the beginning of a part to reframe and resituate myself, which it's okay, but that personally didn't work so well for me. But yeah, I can imagine it doesn't bother everybody, but it did bother me a bit. And yeah, another topic that this touches upon is the gold rush. It's framed on the era of the gold rush. These people come to the US looking for gold, and there are some discussions about looking for gold and the greed of the people around them in a way, the greed of the people that they encounter and of themselves. Like they went there to look for a fortune and to look for gold, and that is also discussed in the book. One thing that it also did that I didn't particularly like is that when it talks about the years, it says XX and then 64 or whatever, so we don't know if it's 1864, 1784, 1984. Like we don't know. I don't know if that's supposed to be because it's a timeless thing, or if it's because we are supposed to know what year that was supposed to be. But as a non-American, that bothered me. So yeah, that's another thing that you have to take into account. I'm not sure, still to this day, I'm not sure when this is supposed to be set at. I think it's the 1800s, but maybe I'm completely off with that. You let me know in the comments if you know. Yeah, so my thoughts about this book are a bit all over the place, and I am not sure yet where I stand in the book. I think there are also some things that I did not completely understand. Like there is a lot of references to animals, like tigers and coyotes, and then at some point they did human things, but then they did animal things, and I do not know if that was supposed to be magical realism or it was supposed to be like a metaphor. There were a few points in which I was thinking, is this magical realism or I'm just not getting the metaphor? So yeah, I don't know. Like if you have read it and know what the tigers and all that means, please let me know, because I was very confused by that. I did not know that there was tigers in California, and maybe there are not, and it's some kind of symbolism related to Chinese culture, but I didn't get it. So if you got it, please let me know. Overall, I liked the book. I liked many of the language, but I also found some important flaws on it, so I can understand both sides of the conversation. And I don't know if I would recommend it. I think that if you like very poetic language, you probably would like this, but if you are looking for a plot and complex characters, maybe this is not the book for you. So yeah, that is my review. Let me know if you have read it or not, if you want to read it, what you thought about it if you read it, and until next video, bye!